Hey everyone. So I drew a few pictures to illustrate how to create longevity, fulfillment, um, and balance in your handstand practice. Now, this is something that I've done for probably 4 years. It's been something I've picked up and put down, but I've been doing it long enough to know that these principles will continue to carry over to whatever level you want to practice with, even though I am probably in the grand scheme of things, I mean, intermediate practitioner, like 1 minute handstand, a few different shapes, tuck, straddle, some flags, some presses. I'm not up to one arm handstand or anything crazy like that, but I think this stuff will hold true regardless. So here it is. Number one is structure or stacking. And this means that whenever you're building a shape, if you think about the way the bones are going to stack to create that shape, you want to unfurl like a fern. So when you see people pressing up into a handstand or going from a crow up to a handstand, basically any kind of shape which requires you to use strength to get upside down, the fern stacking is what you're going for. You want your spine to segmentally stack, your bones to segmentally stack one by one from the bottom upwards, so that the extremities at the top are the most light, most fluidly moving, malleable pieces, and the base is the most stable, strong, and load bearing. This carries on to the next point, which is the way we do our movements and corrections. So balance is never something that is static. It is always something which is being created through movement and correction. In the beginning, this is you up here. So you're used to using your legs, which you're now upside down, like this guy. So you're used to using your legs to correct because that's how you walk. You're not used to using your hands to balance, and so they don't do much. And you have this top-heavy, unstable structure. You progress to the point where you have an ability to correct movements from the bottom, and most of your effort, most of your corrections are happening from low down in the body, e.g. the hands, the wrists, the shoulders, elbows, and up high with the toes, you're not really doing very much at all. Okay. We move on then to quality of practice, or the efficacy, efficiency, effectiveness. So quality and arousal. In something like a handstand, it pays to be more relaxed. You need to be awake and alert, but also relaxed. So imagine how you feel after you've been meditating for half an hour. Or imagine how you feel on a really calm, beautiful day around nature. Clarity of mind, relaxation, but still vitality in the body. This is what we want for handstands. So the arousal level is not super high, but you are alert enough. And the quality peaks here. The quality then goes downhill if you get way too aroused. So if you've just had a wired day, you're full of coffee, you're stressed out, or your heart rate is super high, that stuff might be useful for ripping 200 kilograms off the ground, but for a handstand, not so. So this is our sweet spot. Now we have how to balance the practice and keep it nice and long and happy. So practice is in the middle. This is your kind of target practice zone. So we have different elements that will help you achieve this. And if you sway too far one way or another, then you're going to know, because certain issues will arise and the elements will express the nature of these issues. So, firstly, if you go too far into the fire zone, it means that your body is undergoing too much stress. You're probably practicing too much, too hard, and so there's heat in the body presenting as inflammation. There's stress presenting as frustration or anxiety or anger. And it can be a thing that triggers resentment. It can trigger a feeling of impatience. Too much fire is all it is, okay? So too much stress. You need to decompress. You need to relax to balance that out. Okay, so here's relaxation. It's the watery quality. It's the fluidity. It's the ability to just chill out, spill, float into the ground, unlike the fire, which is always reaching upwards and spitting and snapping. So relaxation is necessary for balance, but too much of this means that you won't progress enough, and we'll cover that a little bit later. So what you want is a balance of stress and relaxation to allow you to recover and to enjoy your practice. Likewise, air up here and earth down here form freedom and structure. Too much freedom and you just won't really go anywhere. You'll never really get to where you want to get. This depends. If your goals aren't super ambitious and you just love freedom, then maybe you swing this way. But if we're talking about a really long-term practice, which is not only internally rewarding emotionally, but also physically progressive, then structure definitely helps. And so structure is your grounding, it's your earth, it's the things that don't move, they're stable, static. They give you a sense of where you are, where you're going. Freedom up here is this sense of going with the wind, going with the weather, going with your thoughts, expressing in your practice the way you want to. So we need to balance all of these elements for a nice sweet spot. You're going to swing one way or the other inevitably throughout the process, but in the long term, a balance is good. Actually, we'll follow on here. So this is your progression arc or your progression journey. And in here you have your volume of practice or your training volume. Like we talked about with having too much stress, too much relaxation, too much freedom, or too much structure, this refers to what you're putting into your practice. Now, if you put in too much, many beginners do this because they get overexcited, then you end up peaking above this ideal zone. So the green zone is your ideal. It's your recoverable but stressful enough progression zone. Too much in this is in the realm of fire, so stress means you might get injured, your joints might get sore, you might get inflamed, you might not like the practice anymore, and so you kind of stop. Not enough means that you're too much in the realm of relaxation and water, and this kind of means that there's just not enough stimulus, there's not enough training, it's not potent enough for your body and your mind to adapt to develop the strength and the skill necessary, okay? And so over time, you'll fluctuate, you'll go too far one way, too far the other, but eventually you'll get used to kind of smaller oscillations, just like when you balance well, smaller oscillations and corrections. The whole process of learning handstands and creating the balance in that is the same as the micro process of actually being upside down and playing with your fingers corrections. So this is how you would kind of structure problem solving, how you would potentially build your handstand. So isolation could be a first step. You might build up the strength in your wrists. You might progressively load the connective tissues over months to get to the point where you can practice more often. So that's your wrist health, that's your connective tissues and joint health. This is your endurance practice. So maybe you're doing wall holds, maybe you're doing hollow holds, bodyline drills, stuff like that to build your general capacity for endurance. And maybe here there's some balance work. So maybe that begins with frog stands. Maybe it's quite an easily accessible balance practice, heel pulls, toe pulls. And so you're combining these tools, eventually integrating them into one thing. So once you've built up the requisite wrist strength, you've got the endurance, you've got the balance, then you can start to integrate. And so you're actually only practicing one thing, although it has 3 elements rather than 3 separate things which don't connect. Once you're good enough at this and you have an idea of how to organize your body in space and you have all the pieces, then you can start to improvise. So this is where you see just epic movement practitioners, artists, anyone super expressive and connected to their body can improvise with their practice. They have a sense of how to auto-regulate or how to self-correct, self-adjust, self-coach in a way to go far. But often improvisation is further along than people think in terms of skill development. There's a little room for each of these things at every stage, but generally this is a good 1, 2, 3 kind of progression. And then we have balance. So balance here, your center of mass. If you imagine finding your center of mass while you're upside down and you hang a string from it with a weighted ball on the end, you should hang that string, the string will obviously always go straight down. So the weighted ball will be straight down from the center of mass. If where that weighted ball hangs is outside of your base of support or your grounding point, then you will fall one way or the other. The center of mass always has to be directly over the base. And so obviously the stronger the base in its correction capacity, the better it will be. So yeah, this is it. There you go. 7 ideas for developing your handstand practice.